Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Josh MUFC here, and I'm coming to you live from Old Trafford, an empty Old Trafford, which I'm hoping to see what will happen later in the day. Anyway, so what we got for you today is a preview of Manchester United versus Liverpool. I will throw some team formations, some news, all this sort of stuff in this stream, and give you a match prediction plus a formation that I'd like to see based on current players in and out, all this sort of stuff. So we'll get right into it. If while you're here, if you can just drop a like, if you feel so inclined, share, subscribe if you want to. I'm not gonna bug you with that. You'll see in the ticker down below that all of the layout of the stream is coming to you. So anyway, Manchester United versus Liverpool. Now, I'm not expecting anything from Manchester United with this game. They have been terrible. The players have shown that they are not up to what Ten Hag's trying to accomplish. The first two matches were very obvious that they're just not it. And the desperate call from Ten Hag to get more players in has been widely publicised, widely reported, and he's clearly not happy. I think that when Ten Hag came into Manchester, he's just like, look, I want to see what these players can do with my own eyes. Hence, he didn't really have a discussion with Ralph. He didn't really want to work with them. He's like, look, we're just gonna see what happens, and I'll make the decision about my team moving forward. And you know what? Kudos to the guy, because that's exactly the way he should have done it. Even though we as fans know that the team isn't good enough, and they've shown it time and again. But basically, it's the same story, the same sort of situation, and it's just a different manager yet again. Now, anyway, we'll move into some of the content. I'm just going to start off with some team news and just any updates that could impact the game, and we'll discuss that moving forward. So anyway, guys, we'll jump straight into it. Now, what I have here is manunitednews.com. I have made myself a promise, and I think other fans should, to abandon any of the mediums that Manchester United have. So whether it's YouTube, whether it's MUTV, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, whatever socials, I've got a blanket ban across the situation. I've decided not to wear the shirts on stream, just as my small channel, my little version of protesting. Because these owners, well, you don't need to know, you don't need to hear it, but the owners are just, they're shit, and they've been constantly dragging this club into the mud year after year after year. So if everyone does their bit, everyone does their bit, we can get them out. The fans have shown they can do this. So anyway, what we have here, ManchesterUnitedNews.com. The article's by Jedida. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. I probably butchered it. So anyway, run through this. This is a good medium to get any updates and news. It was done yesterday, the article. So we'll see what's going on here. I won't read it word for word for you, but basically just going across saying that the last match of the round is Manchester United versus Liverpool, which, fair enough. It's the biggest game of the Premier League. So they decided to put it in game week 3. And of course, it was either going to be the opening or the closing game of the round, get the most views, get the most commercial airtime, whatever. So anyway, as we see here, the Reds have struggled to impress in the Premier League this season in relation to Liverpool, with their 2 draws, 1-1 against Fulham and Crystal Palace in the first and second games. Now, this time last year, both matches, Liverpool 4-0 and 5-0 respectively. I'm pretty sure against United there was a 9-goal overall difference, and definitely not good enough. This club, the players, they just completely gave up. They didn't want to do Ralph's thing. They didn't want to do the pressing. It's not too different when it comes to Ten Hag, but this time he's the permanent manager. So we've seen so far they're not up to it, and looks like Casemiro could potentially be in the lineup, which excites me because you need the strength and reinforcements in midfield. There's no getting away from it. Liverpool will run rampant, while they have been less than impressive in the opening 2 games. This is a completely different sort of game, and I would not be surprised if Manchester United playing shit would allow Liverpool to play themselves into form and go on a run of wins. United will be the catalyst. That's my prediction so far. So anyway, I'll move further on in this article here. When and where will it take place? Old Trafford, we all know that. The game will be live on Sky Sports for those of you who want to watch it. I'm not sure about the international fans, but whoever your streaming service for the Premier League is, you'll be able to watch it via them. So in this match preview, it says here in a scamper for reinforcements in the final days of the transfer window, United have landed Real Madrid midfielder Casemiro. Now, like I said on that, I think the club they're basically, as soon as everything got signed off and sealed and delivered, he's currently in Manchester, I understand, for a medical to make sure everything's done and everything's sorted. I don't doubt he'll play. I think he'll be announced on match day. And very much like you saw with Rafa Varane last season, he'll probably be introduced in the starting lineup. So that's how it goes. The move remains subject to medicals and work permit, but he could be in the stands on Monday, possibly playing, I think. Team update here. Lindelof remains out with injury, and Martial has returned from his spell on the sidelines, but he might not be fit enough to play. I think, given the circumstances, I would not be surprised if Ten Hag rushes him back in. We saw in pre-season that Martial is quite key to the front three that he's trying to employ in this 4-3-3 system, or even if he decides to go 4-2-3-1, which is just a variation. Martial showed that he's pivotal. He's crucial for this front three to be fluid and attack. So a bit of update on match preview news on Liverpool here. Sit 12th after having 2 draws. We know that. Klopp has actually come out in one of his presses saying that they're not looking for more signings unless there was some drastic situation as to why he would. So they have a bit of an injury list at the moment. We'll just go through who's currently injured in Liverpool. Matip, Thiago, Konate, Curtis Jones, Diogo Jota, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Calvin Ramsey, and Kelleher. They've all been ruled out. They're all injured. That's a heavy list of injuries so early in the season. Now, will Liverpool make a signing? I don't think so. Not unless, say, Keita or Henderson or someone else gets injured, and then they might get like a cheap 20 mil player to come in and fill a gap. But I can't see it happening. And also, Darwin Nunez is out. He got a red card against Crystal Palace, so that's a little bit of a dent to their attacking. But again, don't get misconstrued that the injuries and suspension, Liverpool are still exceptionally strong, and I believe they are going to tear Manchester United apart from front to back, and it's going to be a long, long game. It's going to be a very difficult watch. So, fingers crossed it's not as big a demolition job as it has been previously. Now, this article has a couple of players to watch, sort of 1v1s, I guess, across the park to keep an eye out on. They're saying here Malacia versus Salah could be quite interesting. As we know, Salah is just incredible. He is easily top 3 player in the world over the last 4 or 5 years, and he just keeps getting better and better. Malacia, while he's very much a workhorse. He's fairly proficient when it comes to his defensive capabilities, but he's also not afraid to start a counter, take on a man. I just think that he needs to pretty much sit on Salah the entire game, that to try and man mark him out, because that will be a big outlet for Liverpool, given the nature of their injuries and with Nunez being suspended. So I think Malacia should mark him quite heavily, potentially get him out of the game, and that could contribute quite heavily to United not getting completely and utterly decimated. He scored a hat-trick last year in one of the fixtures, and extra attention needs to be paid to him. While there are injuries, Liverpool is still good enough to have other outlets. Diaz, Firmino. These guys can cause a lot of troubles for the Manchester United defence. Now, we'll go on to the predicted 11s here for what this guy said in this article here. He thinks De Gea, Dalot, Maguire and Martinez, Malacia, Fred, Christian Eriksen, Fernandes, and then Sancho, Rashford, and Ronaldo. Now, I have my predicted team of what I'd like to see coming up a little bit later, which is a bit different to this. So yeah, we'll move on to that a little bit later. Now, he's predicted that this Liverpool likely starting 11, Alisson in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Gomez and Van Dijk and Robertson in the defence, Elliott, Fabinho and Henderson in the midfield, and he predicts Salah, Firmino and Diaz will be the front three. I don't disagree with that. I still think that that's one of their strongest 11s. I wouldn't be surprised if we see sort of Milner come on later on to shore up the midfield, and it just depends on the nature of where the game is at the certain point there. So yeah, that's it for that one. Now I'm going to move on to something a little bit different here. The 1958 fan group have an organised pre-set up protest for Old Trafford to get the Glazers out. Now, a lot of people on socials are getting behind this, and I'm going to as well. This is very, very important. Biggest game of the season. Well, I think it should be done in every game. There should be protests. There should be just ways to try and unsettle the games. Now, anyway, a lot of you know what's going on out there. That's been very widely publicised about the unrest with the Glazers. And even though Casemiro has been signed, there was a 48% drop in Glazers out tweets after this happened. It is disgusting of these bandwagon fans to all of a sudden become settled because, hey, the Glazers spent money and bought a world-class player into the team. That is nowhere near good enough. This club, these owners, have the exact same formula for every time something goes wrong. Protests happen, we'll buy players, things are okay again, and everything quiets down. Not this time, guys. The value of the club has plummeted on the stock market. They have had a massive downturn. There was something like a 20% drop last week where the stock market value of the club has bottomed out at 2.08 billion pounds, dollars, euros, whatever you want to call it. I'm assuming it's American dollars because they're listed on the stock exchange, on Wall Street, etc. Now, the news surrounding potential takeovers and investment from the Apollo Group and all this sort of stuff, the Apollo Group rumors were completely false. It turned out the Glazers were going to be sharing or trying to share and sell the non-voting shares as money in their pocket rather than the lie of, hey, we're going to invest it into the club. Anyway, enough about that rant. I apologize. It's a very emotive subject, and a lot of fans, this protest needs to happen and it needs to be peaceful. Don't advocate for violence or aggression. So anyway, I'll go into this article. It's by Kane Smith of Sport Bible. So credit to him for doing this and having this open source material and me sharing it. So give him the shout out he deserves. Now, this was written 3 days ago and updated 2 days ago. So, Manchester United fans will protest against the Glazer ownership ahead of Liverpool's game at Old Trafford on Monday. It's from the Supporters Club 1958 have organised the march following the news that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is interested in buying the football club from the current ownership. So, I think the protest was organised anyway, because it's one of those things, like I said, it's the biggest game of the season for any club, any round, any match week. Jim has gone on record, well, not Jim himself, but his spokesperson has gone on to say, if the club is for sale, I'm definitely interested, basically. And we know he has the money to do an outright cash bid, outright cash purchase. He was looking at, I think it was 4.5 billion to try and buy Chelsea. In the meantime, that didn't go through, and you've seen Michael Knighton and his consortium try and flush out Jim Ratcliffe. So whether that's a thing that's still happening, it remains to be seen. But the protest, we'll move on further down the article here. There's Jim Ratcliffe. Basically, the money, this is more quotes, this is not about the money that has been spent or not spent. Jim is looking at what can be done now, knowing how important the club is to the city. It feels like the time is right to make a reset. And that is 100% true. You just look at the difference between Manchester City and Manchester United right now. Manchester City's owners have invested in the club, in the infrastructure, and the surrounding community. All Manchester United do for the community essentially is charity appearances. And that's nowhere near good enough for a club that size. And yeah, the philanthropic side is basically just a smokescreen for the incompetence of the club. Now, as we know here, he had an unsuccessful late bid for Chelsea back in May. Todd Boehly ended up taking out Chelsea there. United have had a torrid start to life in the Premier League under Eric Ten Hag with back-to-back losses against Brighton and Brentford. We were played off the park in both games, nowhere near good enough. So that basically, this is adding to the protests that are going on. It's more of the same shit, and the club is basically in the mud, and that is why everyone is so damn frustrated about this. So there are planned protests. Whether that will result in the game being called off, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's going to be one of those sorts of protests again, or if it's just going to be, flares and chanting and club songs outside the stadium. Soon find out. This game is scheduled in about 15 hours from now, something like that. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Just move on a little bit more. They're just talking about how all of the unrest started with the English Super League. They're saying the approach will not be similar. The 1958 stressing the importance of the protests remaining peaceful. They will hope it will have a big influence on their plan. Now, there's a video here about the protest details, but just for copyright reasons, I don't want to go into that. The meeting point for the protest will be at the Tollgate, which is a pub just a few minute walks away from Old Trafford. The supporters will meet there at 5:30 British Standard Time, and the march will begin at 7 p.m. British Standard Time. It's been encouraged for fans to bring flags, which can be put on 30-metre fencing, which will be provided. So it looks like it's going to be very, very peaceful. It looks like it's just about numbers as opposed to actions. And if that's what it is, then by all means, go for it, guys. Once everyone's arrived at the stadium, they will congregate at the Trinity. On the opening weekend, the club shop was closed after a large group of United supporters had marched round to that area of the stadium. Now, there's a statement here from the 1958 fan group, so just give it a quick run over. Wait, no, it doesn't. It can be viewed below. Yeah, we'll just leave that for now, I think. So, yeah, all right. Now, we'll move on to why these protests are happening. Just a quick gloss over. I'm not going to bend your ear because this is more about a match preview, but we'll tell you what's going on here. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has called for winning points to be awarded to the team if the protest postponed in the Premier League match. Now, this is just Klopp doing Klopp things. It's very amusing. He's gone from blaming witches and digging ditches to wanting to claim points. And I don't think he needs to worry about it. I think the game will still go ahead and they'll get the 3 points anyway. But, probably just looking at the forfeit rules, I think is what's going on here, to be honest. So why have United taken into action? What's the protest about? It's the displeasure of the club's ownership. We've pretty much covered this in the last tab, so I don't know why I'm going over this again. Glazer family been in full control since 2005. Poor performances on the pitch and lack of leadership off it has caused the breakdown in the relationship between the owners and the fans. With this, there has never been a relationship between the owners and the fans. It has been ridiculously incompetent running since day dot. Now, rivals and other fans have been like, well, you still won silverware. You still won a Champions League. You still won FA Cups, League Cups. You won a couple of Premier Leagues in that time. What's the big deal? The big deal is we had the greatest ever sports manager coach at the helm of Manchester United covering up the incompetence and the rot. He was the Band-Aid for the bullet wound, and it just shows how brilliant he was that investment dropped and dropped and dropped, and the quality of the players lowered and lowered and lowered, and that while the commercial viability grew. So Alex left at the end of the 2012-13 season with a Premier League to his name. Could not have had it better. And we've seen in the 10 years since, things have gone to shit, and without proper football people and without the best people in post and proper running, the club has gone down the gurgler, and we're in this point now. So that is why the protests are happening, and that's why the fans are getting noisier and noisier about it. Will that impact the game? I don't think so. Glazer family have taken out £1.1 billion out of the club in the last 17 years, which includes £743 million in interest payments on the money they used to purchase the club, which basically is leverage debt. United have not had a net spend greater than the money brought into the club via its vast revenue streams in the past decade, despite the owners, Man City, having plunged over $650 million into the club during the same period. That speaks loads. While the oil money City club have an endless supply of cash and funding in the wallet, they are doing things the right way. This is what needs to happen with Manchester United. This is why the protests are happening. This is why the fans have had enough. So, enough about that. I'm going to move on to what I think I would like to see as the predicted lineup. So we'll get rid of this. Now, website called buildlineup.com. It's very simple, straightforward. You don't need to be a genius to work this. So I think United are going to line up in a 4-3-3 formation. Now, I'm literally going off a little bit of hope here. It says Martial in striker. This is more hope than fact. I think we'll probably see Ronaldo, but anyway, I've got a 4-3-3 here. This is what I'd like to see. This is how I'd like to see Manchester United line up. I'd like to see De Gea in goal, despite his horrible performance last week. I think that was more of an anomaly, because he's been good this season, regardless of those few performances and those few average goals that he let in. And I mean, what's the alternative? I can't see Tom Heaton coming in for a Liverpool game and being as good as De Gea, or even being an improvement. I'd like to see Malacia and Dalot as the fullbacks. I think Luke Shaw has shown already, despite a couple of good periods of performances in games, he's not up to it. So Dalot, Malacia, they are progressive enough to, as we know, play United style, play what Ten Hag's looking for, and still quick enough to get back and cover in defence if need be. I want to see Martinez and Varane play together. I want to see Harry Maguire on the bench. I want to see him stripped of the captaincy. I saw links with him to Chelsea, with potentially Pulisic coming the other way. That is only a very small rumour. There's only been a handful of reputable sources talking about it. I think it's more about timing. I think it's the fact that there's questions over Maguire's place in the squad, and all of a sudden, hey, here are these rumours. It probably happened some point earlier in the transfer window. That wouldn't surprise me. So I'd like to see Martinez and Varane. That's what I've said in the last couple of games. I think that combination could be crucial moving forward. Varane, he's quick, he's tall, he's strong, he can distribute the ball, and he's good under a high ball. Martinez, he's a lot like Fred. He has a low center of gravity, and while a lot has been made of his height, Ivan Toney of Brentford has said he had a horrible time on the ground against Martinez. He was very, very nippy. He was very hard to get past, and he was always there. That's exactly what you want. I think those players have their own strengths and would complement each other. Varane may not necessarily go to ground, whereas Martinez is closer to the ground. 5'9" and feeling fine. Moving to midfield. Now here I've got Casemiro, right? I think he will play. I think that will be the biggest bit of news of the day when it comes to the formations and the team lineups. I think they're trying to rush through the visa and get the medical sorted and have him there in the midfield. I'm going to talk a little bit about Casemiro right now. This guy is easily top three holding midfielders, defensive midfielders in the world right now. He is in the same mold as sort of your Nemanja Matic and that Busquets, like a little bit more of an enforcer type of midfielder. He's not exactly the most mobile player, but he'll always take up the positions in defense between defenders as a screening player. So he will sit in the center of a back three when we're playing a high line. He will screen across the back line here in the defensive line. He will never really end up in the pockets of space in the attack because his job is to sit and screen the back four and protect them and fill in any gaps that he sees. Take the ball off, distribute it to Fred, distribute it to Eriksen, and then they move forward. That is the midfield three I'd like to see. Casemiro, people are talking about his age, how he's getting too old, but this guy has won 5 Champions Leagues. He's younger than De Bruyne. He's younger than Bernardo Silva. He's actually, I'm pretty sure he's turning 30 later in the season or turning 31. He still at least has 3 or 4 quality years in him before a noticeable decline. He'll lose pace. He might even lose a little bit of that tenacity, the physicality. But in the grand scheme, this guy's levels. He's not what I would say is a stereotypical Ten Hag signing, but he is exactly what's needed. He is the best player to take up that position since Michael Carrick left the club. Just let that sink in for a minute. We're talking Michael Carrick. We're talking Sir Alex era. We're talking the guy who has since left the club, gone on an apprenticeship, ended up coaching under Ollie, under Mourinho, and even being an interim or a caretaker for 2 games last season. Now, he's off doing whatever. I haven't followed him. But that is Michael Carrick. This is the guy that just left United last year in a coaching capacity, and we haven't replaced him with a DM. Now, they're a different profile of player. Carrick was a bit of an enforcer, but he was also a deep-line playmaker. So he could distribute the ball quite well. He could ping a 30-yard ball diagonally across and land it onto Nani or Valencia, and they could start up an attacking play. The role of Casemiro is going to be crucial. Now, he's not going to be a high-pressing, exceptionally mobile defender, as I've said. He will be the back four screener. He will play as an extra defender when the high line is happening. He will distribute the ball to Fred. He'll distribute the ball to Eriksen, Bruno, whoever's in that midfield, and they will create the play. They will create the attacking balls to the front three. So if Casemiro is playing, which I'd love to see him play on the weekend, expect to find a lot of adulation from the fans, because a lot of these shallow fans are just happy that money's being spent and it's a world-class player that can sell shirts. Now, Fred and Casemiro, they play as a sort of a dual pivot for Brazil. Fred usually ends up taking the ball up the field and playing more as an 8 and coming later into the box and interplay between the attacking lines. Eriksen, I think, should be in for Bruno. Bruno has already played a few games and hasn't looked very good. He's had, like all these players, they've had patches in game of good form. But Bruno's become too reckless, too sooky, and I think he needs to have some time out of the team. And I think Eriksen will come in for him. I think that's a good midfield. Fred's tenacity, Casemiro's defensive capabilities, and Eriksen's creativity. I think, while not overly physical, is still mobile enough to worry Liverpool. Again, this is if all things are equal and United actually do perform. That's what will happen. I think a front three of Rashford, Martial, and Sancho will be the order of the day. The entire team looked better when Martial was striker. Now, given it was only pre-season, but I just think the ability of Martial to hold up the play and bring others in is criminally underrated and understated. the guy, while he's not, Thierry Henry levels of tech, he still has enough about him to back into the fence and lay off the ball, but he can also use that trickery that he has about him to get around the defenders. He, like that year where he and Rashford and Mason scored 51 goals between them, it was basically telepathic. Now, Sancho is now in what I think will be on the right wing. I'm expecting to see more direct attacking plays from United, provided the midfield and the midfield can hold their own against Liverpool's. So that's what I think the United starting 11 will look like and how they'll play. All of that being said, though, I'll just get rid of this quickly. Just keep that in mind, what they look like there. So, keeping that in mind, the team that I just put up in my predictions, I still think United are going to get completely and utterly pumped by Liverpool. My prediction for this match, I think United are going to lose 6-1. I think Liverpool are going to have far too much for Manchester United. I think that just the signing of Casemiro alone and a couple of squad amendments are not going to be enough to turn around how poor this club has been playing. Now, you can have the argument, as I previously said, that Liverpool have not had the greatest start to the season either. But make no mistake, Fulham were incredible. Fulham were incredible taking it to Liverpool. And yes, they looked average. But Liverpool last week, I think it was against Palace, I want to say. Palace were a little bit undercooked. They weren't exactly playing peak performance like they did last night. The problem that I see here, Liverpool have far too many good players and far too many far too much talent and skill in this squad to maintain draw. I think the occasion this big and the situation regarding the protests and everything like that is going to be too much for the players. Now, you will see Martinez, you will see Malacia, you will see Ericsson all put in 100%. But I think you'll find the core Manchester United players that have been there for time probably will just fade away. I am going to, just give me a moment here. Please excuse me while I do this. I'm going to upload a StreamYard link in a moment. Allow me, my computer is just giving me a mare. I'll post it in the comments. Wait, that's not working for me. I'll drop the StreamYard link in the comments if you want to come on and have a chat. It's totally up to you. I will put this in and then I'll have a bit of a chat for a few minutes. And if no one jumps in, then, I'll leave you to go about your day and head off and go about my day. So the StreamYard link's now in the comments. If you want to come on and have a chat, we'll ask a couple of questions, see what you got to say about it, see what you want to say about the game. Oh, great. Here we go. This is be bloody right. Okay, so yeah, I was interested to know what your guys' thoughts about Liverpool playing are. It's quite. All right, let's see here. Oh, what's going on here? My computer is being an absolute hornswoggle. For those of you who know, I've got you here while I'm waiting. The channel that I feature on, Talk Football, if you like what you see from me and you want to see more of it, or if you want to see some different opinions, the guys over there, Anthony, Jesse, Dan, they're all part of the They're all part of the channel over there. They always doing shows. We've got a squad builder planned for later in the week for Team of the Week. Dan and Jesse will go over the you'll probably find later on they'll go over the matches so far in the week for match week 3. But yeah, basically, if you like that, go and check out Talk Football 92. Those guys will they'll make you feel welcome, and there's always welcome for a conversation. While here we've got King's Football. I went over to his channel. He's been doing FPL previews and all these sorts of things. He'll do statistics on Fantasy Premier League if that interests you. He'll go over. He just goes over players and statistics and all these sorts of things. It was actually quality content. Went over and dropped a like and had a look. And yeah, thanks for joining it, mate. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me, guys. Yeah, look, just in a quick summation, Casemiro's been signed by United. I think it's likely he's going to play on Tuesday. I think I'll bring up this yet again. I think your lineup will look as such. De Gea in goal, Dallo and Malacia at fullbacks. I'd like to see Varane and Martinez. I think they would complement each other as a centre-back pairing. Casemiro as the screening DM. Eriksen and Fred as your 8s. I don't think they'll be playing a 10 if Casemiro comes in. Martial will sort of play as that false 9/striker role with Rashford and Sancho on the wings. My prediction was 6-1. I think United might get an early goal, but Liverpool will just squeeze the life out of them. Honestly, it's going to be a long watch. I'm really honestly not wanting to go going to the game. I really don't want to watch it, but that's the problem with being a fan. You still want to watch your team. You still want to support your team. And even though we know that it's going to be a defeat in my eyes, I'll still watch it because, they're the boys. So guys, apologies for how how unprofessional this seems. I'm just still getting my way around this whole thing, but more videos to come. Apologize that I haven't been on for a couple of weeks, but it's been hectic times and I've been putting a lot of time into Talk Football. So yeah, thanks for joining me. If you're watching this on playback, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe if you like what you see, and head over to Talk Football 92. Do the same over there. Those guys are incredible. They're doing great work over there. So yeah, I'll catch you later, guys. Glazers out. Let's hope Manchester United can surprise us all and get a win. Anyway, have a great time, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.